are watching the #1 podcast in the whole entire YouTube wrestling community, and I'm one of your hosts, Juanzo.
And I'm your other host, Jean-Paul Leek.
And together we are
Rope Break.
Family, I hope that you guys are not getting tired of us because we've been going like non-stop this couple of days. You know, we just would like to bring the best content in professional wrestling. That's our commitment. That's why we pledge, in the Rope Break flag. So we will not back down from any challenge. So right now, we're going to bring you like a series that we've been bringing every single episode since its beginning. And that's the Stone Cold Steve Austin Broken Skull sessions. And I think that like this episode, Jean-Paul and I actually, we enjoy ourselves because he's a guy that we both love. He's a guy that we both respect. And because of this guy, we became also like more wrestling fans than what we already were. And this happens to be the Olympic gold medalist, American hero, Kurt Angle. So, Jean-Paul, how you doing? Ready to talk about Mr. Angle, right?
Yeah, this, you and I both agreed. This is probably the best episode. It was definitely one of the longest. I don't know if any of them were this long, but I mean, it was
probably
well worth it.
I think.
What's that?
Probably Ric Flair. I think it was.
Yeah, I think that one was long too. But this one, I mean, I thought everything was good. Some of the stuff, like we said, they got to get a little bit like, oh, Jimmy crack corn, and I don't care. And it's like, it's funny, but they really did get into some kind of shoot territory. Not too much because it is WWE program, produced and everything. But I mean, we did learn a lot about the Olympic stuff, which I didn't really know on. And, some of the backstage antics and fights and everything. I mean, and it was really good. I enjoyed this episode.
Oh, yeah. This is, like you just mentioned, is probably the best episode I've been able to produce. Why? Because you can see how good friends Kurt Angle and Stone Cold Steve Austin are. So you see, like they both were shooting a little bit. Like you said, we got to know, like, more in-depth situations about the life of Kurt Angle. We actually heard, we're going to talk about towards the end, Jean-Paul, but you know that, like, his second stint, his second run was not as good. And you can tell that like he's a little bitter from it.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, so that's good. Like to hear that, like, and we will both have our thoughts about it, and we will be sharing with every single one of you because we actually think that like Goldberg got championship gold, why cannot Kurt Angle? So we know the reason though, and we want to touch it because we just saw a few weeks ago. Remember, we did a video on the best Bound for Glory moments. We had Kurt Angle and Sting going at it, and that's the main reason why. But before we start, Jean-Paul, of course, we gotta thank you all the family. Thank you for the subscriptions and the views because we see that like there a lot of you are like just getting behind us and we were really delighted by it, and we just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. So now, Jean-Paul, let's start with Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle, like at the beginning of the interview, it was more like, hey, the beginnings of Kurt Angle, 1995, 96, Olympics in Atlanta. That's what happens, and we get to see like the rise of an amateur wrestling that becomes an Olympic gold medalist. But walk me through that. I think that what I really appreciate is like you said, they added so much more. For example, I will throw that his coach goes murder. The main coach that was for the Olympics, completely murder. And also we got to see how he actually injured the neck previous to the Olympics. That I didn't know. I thought that during the Olympics it was when he broke his neck. So walk me through that.
Yeah, I thought, the same thing. I thought it was, he injured it in the Olympics, but it was beforehand, he was saying, before that, he even said, I didn't want to even do wrestling. All I wanted to do was, baseball, football, that kind of stuff. But his brothers were all wrestlers, and his brothers were like, no, don't be bullshit. You're going to be a wrestler too. So he's like, I had the best teachers because they taught, 3 guys, that's 3 experiences. They know what to do, what not to do. So that's why he was like, I became the best one out of all 4 of them. I was legit. He puts himself over, but in a humble way. He's I'm not like Goldberg, who Goldberg was like, I'm legit because I'm legit. He was like, I'm good because I had these 3 teachers that taught me everything to do and everything not to do. And, he said he was in the Olympic team. Obviously we know the whole story, but, before every match, he was getting these Novocaine shots in his neck because he's like, my neck was in so much pain. And it took him how long to even find a doctor to, okay him.
Yeah, that will clear him, that will let him even the bye so he could actually perform. But like you said, during the Olympics he had to get Novocaine shots just so he would be able to do it every single match. But after that he will be in more pain. His brothers were able to help him, and he said they will help me to pump me up. So that way I will be able to perform and do this. And then at the end, he said, I was completely afraid of the guy. That it was the final with him, and he said that he was the one that the guy that of course Kurt Angle beat. He said that he was the guy that was that opponent to win the gold medal. So you see that Kurt Angle, like I said, humble at the beginning, but he does the unthinkable and is beating this guy, and he gets the gold medal. And after that, what happens with him? He says that like he got an offer from Vince McMahon right away with a lot of money. He said 500,000. That's what it was, like the original first offer. But Kurt Angle turns it down because his agent at that time, he says, you know what? You don't want to do that like fake crap. He's like, no, don't do it. And he's like, no, don't be bullshit. And he says, well, I can be a coach. I can kind of like put up these 4 years because, of course, with the gold medal being hot, he can do the promotion, be in events, get paid. But after that, he even says it dies down. And the Olympics come out, and then somebody else is gonna get my spot. So what do I do? So like then he actually Shane Douglas, one of Jean Paul's favorites. He says, friends with Kurt Angle from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, our state. So he says, why don't you come to ECW? And check our wrestling company is way different than WWE. So we get to see that picture of they with a gold medal. And what happens in that taping, Jean Paul?
Well, yeah, that's the one where they crucified the Sandman and everything. And I mean, it's one of those historic moments of ECW. And, just Kurt Angle, he's you even hear him. He's on commentary with Joey Styles and stuff. And then he's like, what's going on? And they're like, we're not associated with anything Raven does. Like, we don't condone this. And Angle, it's just like full shoot. He's like, I can't believe this. He's like legit, like disgusted and pissed. He's like, don't want to be a part of this. So, he's pretty much done. And then, of course, that's when the famous Raven comes out. He's like, oh, I'm sorry for crucifying Sandman.
Yeah.
And it's like, the complete...
Like probably, yeah, like you were saying, that was probably the most controversial episode on ECW history. And like you said, Kurt Angle actually said, if you show any of the footage with me, I'm going to sue you. So probably maybe they kept the audio. But, I don't know. You've seen the whole episode because they're all legit. So like he watched the whole ECW. Is he in the shots or no?
I think they show him like coming in, like when he makes his appearance, but I didn't see that picture of him like actually watching it, and then I just heard the audio.
No, so it's probably they kept the audio, but he says if you show my footage of me being there, I'm out. Like I will sue you. You can talk to my lawyers and everything because, like you said, it was that bad. And who convinced him not to just go there and just kind of like go to WWE? It was Ric Flair. Remember that we heard that in the Ric Flair's Broken Skull sessions. So these episodes help us out to understand the vibe of every wrestler. So Kurt Angle finally goes to WWE, but he doesn't get the same contract. He said Vince was going to give him exactly like a lot of money. You can tell who wastes the money in WWE. But then he goes, no, you know what, go with JR. Go with JR, see what and JR said, hey, you know what? You got to make your way up, kid. All the momentum done. So it's like, hey, $50,000 a year. But then he started training with one of the Funks, with like Preacher, also not Bruce Preacher, the other Preacher. And then he became better, Jean Paul, until his debut, and that's like Survivor Series of 1999. That's when like he debuts right there. And at the beginning, I remember watching this when I was a kid, and I was just like, hey, is this just Olympic dude? Hey, that didn't do anything for me. And of course, I'm telling you, me in 11 years old, so it was okay to see him, but as the weeks went on, and he kept getting more annoying and a few more wins, that was like different because it was like, that like outside of him, who has had the best year like that in WWE or like a similar year in WWE? Nobody, right?
Oh, yeah, and the way, like, how he said they booked him, it was like, oh, let's do the Rocky Maivia thing, but instead of you trying to be a babyface, you act like a babyface, but really you're a heel. We're going to want you to boo them. We want every match you win to fall to your knees like you just won the Olympics, be in everybody's face. And, yeah, I mean, he even said it himself. Within his first, year, he beat Austin and The Rock?
Yeah, but it's true, though, because this is the first time for me, Jean Paul. I was like 11 or 12 that like I saw a guy holding two belts because he was like the Intercontinental Champion and the European Champion at the same time. He won the European Champion from Balbinis, and then he wins the Intercontinental Championship from Jericho. And then he was to WrestleMania 15, and he has a triple threat with Benoit and Jericho, and then he loses both belts. Jericho wins the European and Benoit wins the IC Championship. So like, and at the end he's like, oh my god, like in typical Kurt Angle mode, like, oh, I lost both of my titles, it sucks. Oh my god, I want to get something. So the next few weeks after that, Jean Paul, he was trying to get gold. Anyway, he goes for the Hardcore Championship, nothing. He goes like he was teaming up with like Funaki, I think, with William Regal, like to win like the tag team gold. Nothing. So like you see how like the character kept developing, and then like you said, boom, The first serious rivalry, Undertaker. But Undertaker as the American badass, boom, he lost that rivalry. But then Big Show, and then he gets put with The Rock in like No Mercy, and that's like you love this because like I did it on The Rock. That's the same night. That's the whole sequence as they show in the Broken Skull session is like super kick from Rikishi. The Rock is done, and then Kurt Angle does the Olympic slam and done. And that's how he become the WWE champion right here. And he says he got a booger, right?
Yeah, but he's like, oh, since I was a heel, it's all right. The booger's not so bad. But, he even said, like, winning the Olympic gold, it was legit. It was probably the best moment of his life. But he said this is right up there. And, because it's not just any wrestling promotion. He's like, I've won heavyweight championships all over, but this is WWE. And no offense to other promotions, but, like, even though, not to go too off topic, where it's like, oh, you might think WWE sucks, but it's like, what is the top? What is the number one wrestling company in the world? It's WWE. So he's like, to win their heavyweight championship a year into his, career from The Rock, he's like, it was great. It was one of the best moments of his life.
And imagine, John Paul, and you know this because you know the Attitude Era pretty well. After that, the Hell in a Cell with all those guys.
Oh, yeah.
Taker, Triple H, Kane, Rikishi, all of them, Stone Cold, The Rock. Then the match with Undertaker Survivor Series when like the brother came out because he does the last ride. I don't remember. He does the last ride and he pins him. And then Taker thinks that he won the WWE Championship. And then Earl Hebner is like, oh, that's not him. That's not him. And it's like, and it was the other angle. And then Kurt Angle comes from the back and then does I think he does just a roll up and then he wins. He beats him. He goes and he actually had a decent run. He had like a 5-month run. And then he even says, I thought I was going to main event WrestleMania against Stone Cold. And then it's like, and it happens to be The Rock. And then it was because he loses the championship at No Way Out 01. That's when like he loses. And then he actually, I think that he was a little bitter when he was mentioned this because like, I had to fight Kane. Because in WrestleMania 01, he fights Kane. I'm like, so, But, I mean, as a rookie year, he got the best year out of everybody. He won King of the Ring. That was also amazing. He beats Rikishi on that. So, like, you will see how Kurt Angle keeps developing this character that, like, people actually love. And, it's, like, really annoying, but at the same time, he's a great wrestler. He can put on a really great matches, and he's a good heel. Because at this point, we don't see any baby faces moves, right? And then we go to, like, like the triangle love with, like, Stephanie. And, all of that, like, with Triple H. That was also, like, amazing. Like, this storyline was really, really great.
Yeah, I love when he's talking about this whole, like, segment. Well, I mean, first, before that, when that's the one thing. Every time they show clips, angles, he's always commenting, like, oh, look at that bump. That was good. Or, like, oh, that spot hurt or this and that. Like, when he knocks Stephanie off and she hits the ring stairs, he's like, oh, that was a good bump. And then when she's to the back and then we see that whole clip. And then, the famous where he's like, oh, Stephanie, I really care about you. She's like, oh, thanks. He's like, no, I really care. There it is. And then, of course, he said Vince is sitting like 3 feet away, just like staring at him. So he kissed her, like, oh, it wasn't open mouth. He was legit. And then she's like, you're a bullshit kisser. And he's like, well, your dad's right there. And then he asked Stone Cold. And then Austin was like, he's like, yeah, it's a little awkward, but really Austin's probably thinking if that's how Stephanie looked, I would have been kissing her real good. So.
Oh no, like that's what I know. What I like about this, what you just mentioned, is like what he goes like Kurt Angle even goes, how would you done it, or like what would you done? Vince was right there, and the Stone Cold is like like 3 seconds. It felt a little weird.
Yeah, but he was thinking he's probably like, oh hell yeah.
Oh no, that exactly. But it's like Kurt Angle is like, well, it was just like a kiss because we had this is like it's a shoot, it's a work. We're not gonna, it's not legit, okay, and this is the boss's daughter.
But that's so funny. Like Vince is just sitting right there, like probably just like.
Yeah,
like just staring at him, and it's but Vince had a like that little love weird angle with Stephanie, so Vince is weird, so he probably liked it.
Oh, he probably loved it, and we got to see the match like that in SummerSlam, and you remember this spot because like he doesn't even do the pedigree, he's not able to do the move, and then he actually gets concussed for the first time because
I was just going to say, they're talking about like ring generals and stuff, and they mention, Triple H, and Stone Cold even says he's one of the best, and then they talk about this, and he's like, I was done. He's like, this whole match, I was done. There was And because, like you said, the table let out, so Kurt Angle, they fall straight down. He wasn't able to let his arms go to catch his head. He's like, boom, 4 or 5 feet right into the concrete. I was knocked out. I was concussed. I didn't know what was going on. It's almost like when Undertaker and Lesnar, how Taker was like, I was pretty much done the whole match.
Yeah.
The same thing with Angle, and he's like, Triple H led me through the whole thing. There was that spot where he hit Stephanie. He's like, he held my head, and he had to duck my head before he punched. He's like, because I was so done.
Yeah, no, then that was good, and that's to see, like, a lot of people hate Triple H because of all the stuff, like, the backstage, like, power that he had, all the push, that he was doing, like, some storylines, how he never wanted to lose and stuff like that. But, terrorizing is legit.
Well, the thing I'll say about him is, if you're going just based off wrestling skill, oh yeah, legit. But if you want to go character, he started off as a heel, and now in his old age, he had a face turn. Can the guy live? He's babyface now, so let him go.
Yeah, no, and we gotta be thankful for NXT, and also like why NXT preserves itself as like a legitimate wrestling company, or at least a brand of WWE that people can actually look at wrestling, is because of Triple H. Triple H has the mind of the business, and that's why even Kurt Angle is like, hey, by far, like in general, awesome guy. Now Jean Paul, let's move on to like the match with Shane O'Mac. That match is something that solidified Kurt Angle. Goes, like the character that we were talking about. He has a good storylines. He wants the WWE Championship, but now he's like, let's show that he has like heart. Let's show that he's tough. Like let's show that he can go and be able to come up with stuff on the fly, be able to improvise when things don't go the way they're supposed to go. And that was this match on King of the Ring 2001 for the ones that don't remember. And this was exactly through the Alliance angle when it was about to start, because who is actually on commentary, Jean Paul, is not the King, is actually Paul Heyman and Jim Ross. So this is what's happening, and like this is one of the greatest matches of all time that I've seen. And I really love the last spot, but like the whole match was pretty good. And the part like when he did like all the belly to belly over the top of the head like suplex, and they had to break like this, Jean Paul, right? Oh, this is just like...
Yeah, and the win, and you heard different reports. People said, oh, they used that gimmick glass, but then because of the pyro, they had to change it to real glass. But I'm gonna believe what Kurt Angle said here is that they put a coating over the fake glass, then it hardened, and that's why. So it was still like the fake sugar glass, but it just had a coating so it wouldn't melt from the pyro. But He said before this, Shane he was trying to suplex Shane, but Shane countered and suplexed him just kind of on the ramp, concrete, just with like the carpet over it. And, and that's the one thing. He's like, oh, I landed on my tailbone. And, he's like, I broke my tailbone, or like bones in his lower back or something. And Stone Cold said right away, which I loved. He's like, well, if you would have put your legs down and caught yourself, you probably wouldn't have. And he's like, yeah, you're wrong. He's like, I took the bump. I took it wrong.
And that's the thing that, for example, like, see, when like, and this is something that I will tell you, Jean Paul, and this is, I never saw Stone Cold Steve Austin in that light. Because for me, like, he's a guy that, for example, analyzes the match that well. Seeing this, it's like you said, oh, you took the move wrong. Pretty much is what he's telling.
Well, Stone Cold was actually, if you go back, watch his old shit, like especially WCW and early WWF, really technical. It's only when he broke his neck, they're like, oh, he can't really do all that shit, so he became more of like the brawler.
Yeah.
So, he is technical and he knows that stuff, but the one thing with Angle, to defend him on that is when you're taking a suplex on a slanted surface, you probably don't know like how far to lower your legs. He's used to the flat surface of, in the ring, not on a ramp.
Oh, yeah.
So that he was already done. So he's like, I had no leg strength. And by the time he got Shane through the first glass panel, he's like, I didn't even want to get up. He's like, neither of us wanted to get up, but we had the, adrenaline. We want to continue. The famous story, Vince is in the back. He's like, if he puts him through that other thing, it's done. Tell him to end it. The ref was like, end it. And they're like, fuck you. And he's like, I think it was 2 or 3 overhead.
No, it was like 3 is overhead because 2 of them don't break. And then the third one, again, doesn't do the overhead. And that's why he just lets go.
Yeah, well, he just throws him like head first.
Like that. Yeah, there you go. And you can hear how like my window almost breaks because we go, this is Road Break Live, baby. So it is true. And it is true, not because of Kurt Angle, but it's just that's how it went. And then, but they do the super angle slam. When they put like the wood like panel or like the wood like piece, and then he does that, and the one thing I love is like, what if this thing went wrong? It could have gone so wrong, but it's like thankfully it didn't, and it turned out to be one of the best angle slams. And then
you think it's like when they do that shit, It's not like, oh, at the start of the match and they're like fresh as a daisy. Like he said, I had all this broken shit on my back. Shane was done. My arm was sliced up. Shane was sliced up. We lost all this blood. Yeah, and I mean, it's one of the things where Shane's legit. I always think that with Steve Blackman too when he gets knocked off. Shane is so legit. But all the stuff, with the Attitude Era. Before we move on, it's we talked about the "You Suck" chant and all that. I mean, it's just such great stuff.
Well, yeah, well, you want to talk about the little bit of "You Suck"? Who created that is Edge.
Yeah.
Is Edge, because right there, see, they have that big storyline. And why do I say it's big storyline, Jean Paul? Because it was like 3 pay-per-views. 3 or 4 pay-per-views during the summer of 2002. And that's when he gets like the hair versus hair match. And then he gets like his hair shaped up. And now he mentions this is because I was going bald. And that's why I just decided to do it this way. And then it's like, you suck. And everybody, the crowd loved it. And then he already got the it's true. And remember the 3 I's, intelligence, integrity, and what was the other one?
Intensity.
Intensity. See, there you go. It's like he got the 3 I's. Now he got the it's true, it's damn true, all of that. And now he got like the you suck, like, one more time. So, yeah, Kurt Angle, like, again, another year that he was really legit.
And the one thing he did say about the "You Suck" is he put over, he's like, oh, that's because of the what chants. And to me, the what chant is one of the most annoying things ever. But "You Suck" I think is funny. But he's like, oh, it kind of spawned from the same thing. And like the one thing they did say, which is true, no matter what the chant is, when the audience feels like they can be involved by chanting either "what," "you suck," whatever, that is like, it helps them connect with the character.
That is getting over. That's the way we can actually teach our people that are like follow us and don't really understand wrestling psychology, is that means getting over. For example, like clear, like one of the newer versions of that, not as big, but like for example, Rusev Day. Remember every Rusev Day and everybody, woo. Or like, for example, when people like, although I thought it's a little bit annoying, but when people like on AEW sing Judas at the end.
Or I would say, or like even, the Undisputed Era, when they go Adam Cole and then the whole.
Baby. Adam Cole, baby, is the same exact thing, because what you're trying to get that reaction from the people, because you said they feel part of something.
And even the crowd, the thing that really, pushed Keith Lee is like you hear in the crowd, people like, oh, bask in his glory.
Yeah, exactly. So, like you see, that's right. There you see like 2 bald men. The one is really serious. The other one is like laughing his ass off. But like, let's move on, Jean Paul, to like talk about the relationship between these two. Stone Cold Steve Austin and Kurt Angle. They had like during the Alliance days, they had a really great feud. They had really great spots, really memorable. And people just remember this. And like the segments, the comedic segments, and I know that like for a lot of people are not that not cool, but like I really enjoyed this because Kurt Angle was able to show his like comedic size, and see, that's how he learned how to work. And like they keep saying that it's like, in the business it's not only about how you as a wrestler, because you can be the greatest wrestler in the whole world, but if you are not able to connect with the people, you're nothing. And that's, for example, a lot of people might say, in that case, I will say, for example, people like, let's say, like, for some people, Orange Cassidy is getting into that level that he connects, and like he's not such a great wrestler for some people, but he's in that middle, because he's able to connect, but he doesn't need the wrestling.
Oh, and somebody who would be a polar opposite would be like a Dean Malenko, one of the best wrestlers, but it's like, does he have a gimmick? Does he have a character?
Exactly. No. That's what I wanted to appoint. Yes, you're still a really good example for me. Dean Malenko. There you go, Jean Paul Cesaro.
Yeah, Cesaro, I think, has a little bit more. He's getting a little bit more of a character, but no, the whole back to the topic with Kurt Angle and Stone Cold. I like the comedy stuff because, like I say, if you do these segments, hey, you gotta have comedy. Some people like that, but as long as when the bell rings and these guys go out there and put on legit matches, that's all I care about. If that's the case, then I'm fine with the comedy, and that's what you guys did. I mean, he said, like, what was the match? It was in Pittsburgh.
Yes, Jean Paul, Unforgiven 2001, right there.
Yeah, and he's like, are you gonna put me? Oh, he was like, 9/11 just happened. I'm kind of an American hero, and it's like Angle. He's, it's like a win-win for him. Like, I'll have the belt, and I don't need to hold it long. It can just be a feel-good moment, but it's also will be good for America. People would cheer the baby face because he's like, I was the baby face. And the one thing I do like about this is Stone Cold said the same thing that Edge said in the Untold, that for him and Cena, and he's like, I was the heel and Edge was the heel, but the crowd mostly cheered them, and they said, man, I wish I could have turned the crowd against me in this match, but I weren't able to do it. It was still kind of 50-50, but Angle said it was one of the best moments. I think he said it was his favorite title win because his family, everybody came out.
You can see in the family, like you can see, like the family was there, carrying, like even the wife carrying Angle at that time. They have everybody, and it felt good. But like you said, the fact that Kurt Angle made a call to Vince, and then Stone Cold is like, "Hey man, you mind?" Like he was respectful enough, and like Stone Cold and having the mind of the business. See right there, you also see Kurt Angle had a mind for the business. Hey, why don't we just do this? Because Stone Cold was supposed to win that match, and he's like, "Why don't we just change it up a little bit?" And then the result will be this, and it's probably one of Kurt Angle's best moments in WWE, right there. And like you said, he dropped it like I think 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks after. Like what happened?
And see that I don't mind when you do like the hot potato thing when stuff like that. It's like, hey, let's have the little feel good moment, but then after it's over, then we go back to the major storyline.
Well, yeah, and like you said, it's like what did you just say? Feel good moment, and that's the one thing that like wrestling is lacking right now because WWE is not able to give us feel good moments. Mm-hmm. And I said, let's play a little bit, and not even see hot potato will be what back and forth. But if you just do it, hey, I give it to you for what? 3 weeks, and then you just give it back, and then I keep it. That's not hot potato, or vice versa. Exactly. And they don't do that. For example, why don't you just do that with Randy Orton right now? Do it with Keith Lee. Without
like let's see, Otis. Can Otis win the belt for like a week and then he loses it, or like on Sunday and then he loses it that following Friday?
Exactly. Feel good moment. You have the money in the bank briefcase. Do it, win it, and that's all you need to do. Mm-hmm. That's it. But like, see that Kurt Angle again solidifies himself as one of like the top baby faces or like the top main eventers in there. And then we call Jean Paul to like, of course we got to go through this though. Jimmy Crack coin, and I don't care. I got Olympic gold. That's probably, I think Jean Paul is like ranked number 2 or 3 in like the best Raw moments of all time.
Well, my favorite part is when he's like, "Oh, can you move over?" And then Stone Cold moves away from him, and he's like, "No, the other way." He like wants him to move even. It's just like the funny, and he's like, "It was all unscripted," because Austin looks at him like, "What?" Like it's just like the most, it's unscripted. It's funny. All the reactions are real, and like they said, they did everything in one take.
Yeah, in one shot.
Kind of like rope break.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's why it's good. That's why it's good because we do everything in just one shot because we want to show also that we're real people. We're not like just scripted. We don't like that. We like raw, unscripted situations. So this was good. I love this because again, Kurt Angle can make me laugh, but I'm completely damn sure he's a fucking great wrestler.
Oh yeah. Because then let's get into. I mean, these matches were good. Attitude Era, Attitude Era. Well, I always say it's more moments than great matches. But now we get into 2002, 2003. Now we start getting into the legit matches. He talks about Lesnar coming in, Eddie Guerrero, all this stuff. Yeah. So,
well,
take us through. What should we? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you said you've seen this, right? Like, talk to me a little bit about the whole thing he talked about Brock Lesnar.
Well, yeah, I mean, he said, Lesnar came in and they're like, oh my God, look at this guy. Can this guy even work? He looks like a monster. And then they find out he was an NCAA champ. And he's like, oh yeah, people asking him, oh, Angle, he's the Olympic champ. You're NCAA. Like, could you beat him? And of course, Lesnar's like, oh, I'll kick his ass. Like, I'm younger. I'm bigger. He said, oh, I'm 60. I think Angle said he was about 60 pounds heavier and he moved just as fast. Yeah. So, but Angle was like, it's different. He's like, I respect the NCAA, but like Olympics, it's like, dude, like, you got to be kidding me. Like, there's no, you can't compare the two. And so then he's like, no, I'd kick Lesnar's ass. So then he's like, we set it up. A couple of the boys were there. Austin even said he was there. And I think he said the final score when they had their little amateur wrestling match was 1-0, and Angle beat him. So he's like, but it wasn't a big deal. He didn't like put it over. He was like, we wanted to see who was better. I won. Brock's a hell of an athlete, and he pretty much moved on. So I really like that because, people always wondered, oh, who was better? Now we heard it. So until we hear Brock say otherwise, I'm going to believe that's the truth. But
no, and also, like you said, is like, why am I better, though? Because he says, like, I have more experience. Like you said, it's like, and the NCAA is like one thing, but amateur wrestling is completely different. There's a lot of differences, and like, I love I remember this part when he says, the difference of being a pro wrestler and an amateur wrestling is like in amateur wrestling, they teach you to be like no motion. Completely like you just a straight face. You watch at the hips, so you don't show you're pissed off, you're happy, nothing. You just like focus on winning. What is pro wrestling? It's all gestures.
No, it's all
people.
yeah, people don't get into it, but
and that was like Stone Cold was like completely blown away from that. Like yeah, like he was completely blown away from that because he's like, I didn't know that. And see, like Kurt Angle, like you said, like he goes to this like probably like some like the years that like make him completely like one of the best, if not the best wrestler in the world. For me, Jean Paul, and this is Brock Lesnar, like you said. This is like the great rivalry. Remember this match at WrestleMania. They had the Iron Man match. They have the SummerSlam match in 03. And all of this, but then is when he broke his neck one more time. And remember, like, he wasn't going to do this match. But what is the real story? He didn't talk about this, but he says that like one of his friends had a kid. And the kid has never seen Kurt Angle wrestle. And he's like, oh, my kid is really looking forward for you to fight this match. And he's like, well, man, and I can do it. Like, I'm going to go for surgery. They're probably going to, like, I'm not going to have that match at WrestleMania. He's like, no, can you please? And he's like, well, let me think about it. And he did it. That's the reason. That's how legit Kurt Angle is, Jean Paul.
Yeah, and then he even said for that Iron Man match too, his sister had just OD'd, and this is kind of the start of his downward spiral with, taking pain medication and stuff. And he's like, I was so depressed. He's like, I'm going out there and he didn't even talk about how that match is rated the best TV match of all time. People say that's one of the best television match. And then he was just like, yeah, I had to wrestle this match. And, he's like, my mind wasn't in it. I was just thinking about my sister. And it's like, I respect him for that because, who wouldn't? But it's one of the greatest matches. And it's like he wasn't even in the zone.
Oh, yeah. Imagine if he would.
What did he say? He's like, it's one of those things where he's like, I'm always high energy. I'm always, ready to go.
I'm always out.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was good. And then,
like
him and Lesnar.
Tell me about Eddie. Tell me about this stuff. Eddie Guerrero.
I mean, him and Eddie they even, like, that was some of the best matches on SmackDown early days, great stuff. And they had, tons of fantastic matches. But he said him and Eddie, like, they were friends, but they weren't, like, there was that competitive. It wasn't like, Eddie and Benoit where they were, like, two sides of the same coin. He's like, he's like, me and Eddie, a couple of times we'd have matches. And then he'll go backstage, and then he'd be like, oh, well, why are you stiffing me? What's your deal? He's like, dude, I'm not stiffing you. And he's like, Eddie would try to, take him down and beat him up. And it's like, really? When you're a wrestler, unless you're going against a guy who's a legit fighter, a wrestler's probably going to beat you. So it's like, that probably wasn't too smart on Eddie. But I like what he said about the Big Show. The Big Show comes in, he grabs both their tights.
Oh,
and,
like, yeah.
Like two little babies.
Grabs him by the tights.
Like, what are you doing? Don't you ever pick me up like that again? And then Big Show's like, you guys got to stop being bullshit, whatever. So then he's like, okay, things calm down. He goes to talk to Eddie. And he's like, Eddie, are we good? Or, like, can we put this behind us? Eddie's like, I'm not ready to put this behind me.
They go again.
Tackle me again. But, he said,
and then the Big Show grabs him again.
Yeah, he's like, Eddie is a hell of a wrestler. But the one thing I knew that Eddie had that accident, but I didn't know it really, like, affected him that much because, he's still good. He's still legit. But, he said one thing that made sense. He bulked up and everything because, one, to get over in WWE, and two, he knew that was the way to go because he couldn't do the cruiserweight moves. He could never be that cruiserweight guy again because his hips and his back were, I guess, completely destroyed in this accident. And then, till they, do the rehabilitation and everything. But, it's a shame for Eddie because he said, he could even tell, hindsight's 2020. But looking back on it, he could tell that there was the heart condition. We know Eddie passed away with a heart attack. He's like, some matches, it was like old Eddie. And then other ones, he's barely in the ring and he's getting blown up. And it's like, what's going on?
Yeah, you're right. See, like, that's the assessment that he gave about all these things. It was really great. And, again, goes to, like, main event status. And he got this stuff with, like, Lesnar, like you said, Eddie Guerrero. And I remember, like, debut for Rey Mysterio. He was Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was the very first main feud for Rey Mysterio. He got, like, remember when he was tag champion with Benoit, and then, like, against going to Edge and Rey Mysterio. That's one of the great matches in, like, SmackDown, like, in the pay-per-views for SmackDown. That I'm not completely sure what pay-per-view is that. So, family, forgive me. There's so much wrestling that I watch, but, like, they have a match that is absolutely amazing. So, please, just Google it. Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit going against Rey Mysterio and Edge. Absolutely.
And that's one thing which we understand why. But it's a shame he couldn't mention any of the stuff he did with Benoit because, that was some of his greatest matches. But we understand why. So
yes, exactly.
I'm not going to be like, oh, why didn't they mention it? Like, yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So Jean Paul is going, like, towards the end now. Well, he left WWE, like you said. That one thing I didn't know is that, like, he leaves WWE because Vince also, like, kind of gave John Cena, like, the Marine part. He's supposed to be for Kurt Angle. I didn't know that.
Because I mean, he had that great match with Shawn Michaels. He talks about that and everything. WWE did the Untold.
Shawn Michaels. What? Let's talk about that. Look at the smile, arrogance between the two of them.
Yeah, and this Kurt Angle, he says, is one of his greatest matches. And, he's like, beforehand, Shawn Michaels comes up to me and he's like, I'm not afraid of you. If something goes down, I'm not afraid of you. And Angle's like, okay, like, I didn't plan on doing anything. He's like, I know some people said Shawn's a little crazy, so I don't know if he's just trying to get in my head or what's going on. But, they put on one of the greatest matches. They showed the highlights. And, people say Shawn Michaels is one of the best, or if not the best, and you kind of forget that. But then, you go back and you watch a match of his, and you're like, okay, yep, yeah, I see it.
He's good. Yeah.
There's no way you can't say he's, at least for workers, and wrestling in the ring, there's no way you can't say he's top 3 of all time, whether you put him at 1, 2, or 3. But, that was a fantastic match. The feuds with The Undertaker, even at the end there, too. Great stuff. But like you said, it's getting in the twilight. John Cena, he called him out, or, Kurt Angle, the ruthless aggression thing. Cena comes out. So, that was all legit, but then it's kind of getting in the twilight. Even though he was only wrestling, 6 or so years in WWE, but it's kind of getting towards that point. And, he's like, I need some time off. The pills are getting crazy, let me do this Marine thing. And then he gives that to Cena. And then it's like, well, now I can't even take a break from wrestling. And he was working so much. He's like, I was high from these pills. I was texting Vince, like, if I see you, I'm going to kill you, blah, blah, blah.
Your ass.
Yeah, like all this stuff. And,
the best part is, like, remember, Jean-Paul, when he goes to that meeting and he pulls his pants down and he's showing his balls, like, and they have, like, bruises.
Because he said the whole black and blue all over his pelvis. And then Vince was like, whoa. Yeah, something's going on. He's like, yeah, but he's like, everybody saw my junk, they saw my ass. He's like, I didn't care. He's like, I needed to prove a point, and that was the only way to do it. And
breaks ass, yeah.
So I mean, Kurt Angle at this point, he's in rough shape. He wanted to do that movie, and he pretty much left WWE because he was like, if I keep wrestling your schedule and taking pills and doing this stuff, he's like, not going to commit suicide, but something happens and I'll probably end up killing myself, whether it's from pills or having a heart attack in the ring or whatever. And they're like, all right, take some time off, go to rehab, 6 months, come back, and then, we'll pick things up where they left off. But he's like, I didn't see myself being in the main event of that again, leaving for that time. And which one thing he didn't mention, but Impact, they offered him a lot less dates. They said, WWE having you wrestle all the time. They're having you wrestle house shows, all this. They're like, no, you're just going to wrestle. These are the number of dates. Yeah, it's a lot, but it's, only like half of what WWE was having you do. And obviously they're going to put him main event. So, that that's pretty much why he went there.
Oh, yeah, and like we both mentioned in the videos that we've done of Impact, that's where he had one of the best runs. He had, like, a lot of great matches. And, the likes of AJ Styles, Christian, Samoa Joe, and he was able to put Impact on the map.
Well, yeah, and Angle even said himself, I wish that WWE fans, if they haven't, could see my matches on Impact because those were my best matches.
No, yeah, and he did say that. He's like, remember, he did say, like, oh, he's like, I know we did 2 million a year, like you said, it was a little shot. It was like a subtle shot.
Yeah, he's like, we were doing 2 million a week, like 2 million viewers on each episode
TV.
on Spike, on
Spike TV, yeah. So, like, he's like a subtle shot of, like, WWE right now. But, like he said, well, but, because of him, he was able to put them on the map. Because outside of him, nobody knew what Impact was. Unless you were like a hardcore, die-hard wrestling fan, you didn't know about Impact at all. The only reason is because I opened a magazine, the Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and I saw pictures of Kurt Angle, and I'm like, oh, this is where he's at right now. I thought he was done. Because, if you don't know about wrestling like that in a hardcore way, you do think that if they leave WWE, they're not doing anything else.
Yeah.
And now we got to see, like, the matches, like you said, with Samoa Joe, with, like, Christian, AJ Styles, putting over, like, those two guys, especially AJ Styles and Samoa Joe, is because of Kurt Angle. They're stars because of Kurt Angle. Sting, and the main event Mafia, he did all of those things, like the stuff with, like, even Jeff Jarrett, all of that. And like you said, like, he put Impact on the map. But, like, they just brush it off. We will do a video, we can promise you guys, we'll do a video of Kurt Angle just on Impact. Because there's way more stuff to talk about, but he mentioned, like you said, the down spiral and everything. He said that, like, he was doing a lot of Xanax, a lot of, what's the name of the other pill?
Percocet, and then Soma. And the one thing he did acknowledge, because it's almost like an internet meme. People say, "Oh, look, it's Perk Angle," like Kurt Angle, and he even said he's like, "There's no such thing as Perk Angle." So like the fact he acknowledged like an internet meme was pretty funny, but at least that shows the power that these memes and stuff have. And it's like, he's a person too, not to be like all sensitive, but it's like, hey, like, don't make fun of the guy if you're a fan of his.
And you said they do see him though. You know what I mean? So like, it's not that they just not. They're ignoring it. They see it, and they probably, like you said, they're affected by it.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's like, I would take this stuff after the match. I wouldn't pop, like, how many and go out there and wrestle. But he did it, so when he did wrestle, he didn't feel any pain. But he's like, yeah, he was spiraling. And he even said the pills weren't as bad in TNA, but everybody there drank. So then he started drinking. He's like, I'd be driving down the road to the next town, and I'd drink a 12-pack of beer, and he's like 4 DUIs in 5 years. It was absolute bullshit. My wife was like, I'm going to leave you unless it's done better. So, yeah, I mean, he changed his life around, and then he went on that great retirement tour they talked about a little bit. They showed Joe Coffey, he mentioned Rey Mysterio. Yep. Like you said, they didn't mention the royal wrestling family.
They didn't mention you can go the way, I get it all the way. They didn't mention Cody Rhodes, of course, but like you said, like that was a really great tour, and like Jean Paul just mentioned is like the one thing that he could have done is like he was getting in shape, but like see, he comes back finally in the WWE. The induction comes up right there. Like everybody's excited about it. Like we were all thinking he's gonna come back as an active wrestler. We were saying, Jean Paul, myself, we were all like, hey, this guy needs to come back in like maybe 2 3 months, 4 months. He has to.
Well, I remember even saying, I don't think I was part. I don't think Rope Break was had Jean Paul's services yet. But I just remember saying to you or someone, let's you have him as the Raw GM. Samoa Joe's there. That's the perfect thing. Let's start a feud with that. Have him as the GM for 2 weeks. Get him in this feud with Samoa Joe. Because what's a GM on Raw anyway? It's just controlled by Vince and it's all bullshit anyway. But no, they didn't do that. They had him in the Raw GM, and he even said, I wanted to be, I was happy to headline the Hall of Fame class. It was legit a dream come true. I didn't think it would happen. Couldn't have gone any better. And then it's, we're going to have you as the GM. And he's like, oh, well, I guess I'll start eating again because, he was in that match with Triple H and Ronda and Stephanie. But who was the star? It wasn't Stephanie, wasn't him, wasn't Triple H. It was to get Ronda over.
Yes. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
He was the GM for how long? And then they finally let him wrestle. And he said at his age, he had to keep taking bumps. He had to keep wrestling. If not, his body, the bones and everything stiffened up. He's old. He's so many surgeries. He's like, then when they asked me to wrestle, I was in such bullshit shape. And that's pretty much why we got what we got. And he's like, I don't understand why I couldn't have been brought in with someone like Goldberg. How Goldberg gets brought in, boom, 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 title match, wins a title, is legit, has a couple more matches, drops it to somebody, and then, hey, thanks for everything. The fans can buy some T-shirts. They can see me again. It can be legit. Now I ride off into the sun.
Absolutely. That's like you said, is like one of the worst ways of going is being to Kurt Angle because of this man. Vince Kennedy McMahon, because like you said, I think we were talking before we started recording, is because he wants to get back at Kurt Angle for being on TNA. For making TNA that legit competition during those years.
And what did he say? He didn't talk to him for 11 years? And you know how Vince is. He holds a grudge. Why was Sting so bullshit?
Yeah.
When Sting came there. And why was Rey Mysterio when he first came to WWE? So bullshit. So everything he was involved with when his return has been awful until I would say the past couple months. Not just the Seth Rollins feud. A little bit before that, some good stuff. But
like the stuff ever since with Brock Lesnar. Since Brock Lesnar Survivor Series, all of that was really cool. And up all the way up to now. That finally Rey Mysterio is like a main event guy. Acknowledge what he's been. Like you said, it's like he's been going back at them. It's just, hey, like you said, why Samoa Joe is like still till this day not even like a WWE champion? Because he was made on TNA. Who's the only guy that has able to, break that wall, break that like theory or like at least step out of that is AJ Styles.
Yeah, and that's because Vince, he just waxed AJ. He loves AJ, and I mean that's one of those things. Unless Vince is just in love with you, you're gonna get what you're gonna get.
And probably because also like a lot of influence from Jericho, because I've heard that like Jericho had a lot of influence during like the beginning of AJ Styles in WWE because Vince didn't want him to do the Clash, the Styles Clash. He didn't want him to do that. And Jericho's like, no, it's a legit move. I'll take it. And if it comes out good, it will be fine. So, like, all the wrestlers has been like, he's good. But in the case of Samoa Joe, we still don't understand why he never won gold in WWE, like WWE Championship or like in Universal, nothing. Yeah, he got put in a lot of like championship matches, but he never won. It's like Nakamura also. So like you see, like you said, it's like if they do good to Vince all the time, you're always gonna have gold. See, Goldberg never went to any other wrestling company after WWE. Hey, come back. Okay, legit, boom. Legit, boom.
And I mean, Goldberg's everything Vince loves. He's tall, he's big, he's muscular.
Exactly.
He only does 3 moves.
Especially about that. So like, yeah, but this was pretty much the whole summary of this like Stone Cold Steve Austin Broken Skull Sessions episode. I think that like for me it was like the best by far, just because of, like I said to you, this guy, make you tap out, all the good storylines. When he was GM, like you said, a really bad run, especially being retired by Baron Corbin. That really sucks. That to me hurts.
Oh yeah, especially how he said, he even said, "Oh, if this is how I need to go out, he didn't say it here, but I heard it in other interviews. He said, "Can it at least be John Cena?" Yeah, that at least has some history. That would be legit. You give Cena a moment at WrestleMania, and him and I. That's just a star-stud, legends match. But no, Baron Corbin.
No, yeah, Baron Corbin. Yeah, like you said, it's like Vince completely like.
And that match was to be the GM of Raw.
Yeah. And also like but like that's why like
the best part of it though is that I'm happy that Kurt Angle wasn't like some of these other people who was like, oh, it's fine, it's legit. You could tell he's extremely unhappy with how that turned out.
Oh well, and because where's Baron Corbin from that? Doing that right now. What is he doing? Did he benefit from all these things?
Nope. Just feud with Roman for like 7 months.
Hey, thank you. And he could play that story. I was the guy that retired Kurt Angle. Like kind of like
from that. He did for a little bit, but then it's like it didn't mean anything because look at him.
And then right now, feuding with, like you said, Roman Reigns for like the whole year. And now Matt Riddle. Not saying Matt Riddle is not good, but has he ever been able to be in a championship match? Baron Corbin, no. Has he ever been able to win gold again after the United States Championship? No.
The only championship match I can recall is that bullshit one that he had with Lacey Evans against Rollins and Becky Lynch.
Yeah, well, but see, okay, but did he look good? No. Did he win? Of course not. So, like, and that's the one thing is, like, if you're retiring somebody, that should be, like, your stepping stone for, like, greatness, especially somebody like Kurt Angle. And the one thing before we leave is like he didn't even acknowledge himself as like one of the top, the Mount Rushmore. He didn't even say I'm one of the top 3 best wrestlers of all time. He said, at least with the 6 years I did, I've been able to be in that conversation. And Stone Cold is like, hey, no man. He's like, everybody that's seen your work know that like you're probably the best. He's like, hey, thank you, Steven. Kurt Angle also said, in my dream, or like I wanted to be a professional wrestler because of you. So to me, a little crappy because you know how I feel about Stone Cold Steve Austin as a wrestler. But I mean, if he does what he likes, that's Kurt Angle. You know what? That's fine. I just appreciate Stone Cold as a character and everything, but I was never a fan. If you want me to pick between The Rock and Stone Cold, I always pick The Rock. But outside of that, Taker for me has always been the man. But Jean Paul, you close the show, like with your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, there was a bunch we didn't cover, but there's no way we could cover it all. He talked about the plane ride from hell and stuff. So guys, obviously check out, after you're done watching this, hopefully we hooked you and then go watch the legit, interview. But it was great. Kurt Angle, this was one of the best ones. I'm excited to see who they're going to have next. You and I were talking off the show. They could have touched more on stuff with Edge. And I said, well, who knows? Maybe Edge will be one of the guys on here. But
I have 3 names, maybe like almost 4. It could be Shawn Michaels. It could be, Triple H. But it could be, like, if they were able to secure this one, The Rock. And if they could have
they'll have that. The Rock will do it because, The Rock, it's just when his schedule's free. It's not a matter of if, it's more a matter of when. Yeah,
there you go. So, like, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Edge, those 3. Even, I don't know, I will pop for Christian, but that will be just you and me. That episode will have 2 views because we're the 2 that care about Christian.
I would rather see Christian get interviewed by somebody with, like, TNA. Talk about that.
That legit shoot, so he can actually say what he can, because, like, in WWE, is like, what are you going to say about your career? I was a tag, and it was legit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Randy Orton, and done.
And done. That was it, then done. 2 days I had the World Championship, 2 days, and done. So family, thank you so very much for watching this episode. We absolutely love that you're with us in every single one of the episodes we've done. Don't forget to watch every single thing of the content. We're crazy to give you more and more content. Like Vince said, what happens if you cannot sleep today? You sleep tomorrow. And what happens if tomorrow you cannot sleep? Well, you sleep the day after tomorrow. So that's our mentality, and that's why we keep bringing you the best content ever. Jean Paul, remind everybody where they can find us in the social media world, please.
Where you can find us on Facebook on our Rope Break, Twitter, the OG Rope Break, Instagram, the original Rope Break, right here on YouTube for the best podcast in the YouTube wrestling community, the original Rope Break, and also don't forget to check out everythingentertainment.com, the new partnership for Rope Break. We're, beyond excited. You can check us out there. And if any of you are joining us from that website, coming here on YouTube, we want to welcome you to the Rope Break family.
Absolutely right. I could not say it the best. So, please follow everything that Jean Paul just said. So, family, we'll see you again tomorrow because we have Dynamite review. A lot of things happening on AEW. NXT is also, we're going to be doing that because there's going to be a face-off between Finn Balor and Kyle O'Reilly. There's going to be the intergender match that Jean Paul already shit on because it really doesn't make any sense to have Damian Priest and Io Shirai just tag against the Garganos, but we'll see what happens with that. It's, again, another date for the Wednesday night War, Jean Paul. So you and me have one more thing that is left to say, and that is...